Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and we have got your Saturday transfer portal update. Now, I'm putting up a bunch of shorts on YouTube and also on TikTok, and I'm covering all of this on my Twitter, which you can see down below. So if you do want some more transfer portal coverage, subscribe to this channel and go follow me everywhere else. I don't want to do my own horn. I think I'm pretty on top of it. There's so much news coming out. My screen time is through the roof trying to cover all this portal stuff for you guys. But let's just get right into this edition of the portal update. Now, I'm starting with news that just broke right as I'm recording this. And that is that Kentucky has landed the commitment of Tavion Wallace, who is a linebacker from Arkansas. Now, Kentucky's hot right now. They're hot with scheduling visits. Right, so you can't really go too far, but they're getting visits from guys like Sam Leavitt, DeAndre Moore, CJ Baxter, Robert Woodyard, and now they have their first commitment from Tavion Wallace coming from Arkansas. His older brother played at Kentucky, which I'm sure helped there, but you're seeing Kentucky and Will Stein, like they're being very aggressive in the portal. I'll go more in detail on Kentucky in a second here, but just starting off with Tavion Wallace, like you're getting a commitment from an SEC guy, you're keeping him in conference, you're fending off some other schools for him. And it's just one of those things that can kind of get the ball rolling because some of these guys who are on your campus right now will probably see that, people are committing. Things are starting to get going. I need to get my spot. And then you have Tavion Wallace now there. He can be a recruiter. He can be a guy who's helping to get some of these other guys to decide to go to Lexington. So Kentucky's in a really good spot. Outside of just Tavion Wallace, I mentioned they have Sam Leavitt on campus. It was rumored yesterday that they were working on a visit after Leavitt entered the portal with a do not contact tag. There was rumors they were trying to cook up a visit. He is in Lexington today. So is DeAndre Moore Jr., a receiver from Texas. CJ Baxter, Texas's running back. And then Robert Woodyard, a linebacker from Auburn. Those are all guys who can be all-conference players. And Will Stein has got them in Lexington while he's doing Indiana prep for the Oregon Ducks. The job that Will Stein is doing right now is incredible. Kentucky's getting hot in the portal, but these visits only mean so much. They have to turn into commitments. And what you've seen in this era, Cignetti's doing it at Indiana. It doesn't really matter what school you're at. You can turn it around with the right guys running the program, getting the right players in the program. Kentucky can be dangerous next year if this portal haul turns out the way it looks like it could. And for another school who's trying to kind of get back up into the ranks of competitiveness, Florida State. They are underway in their search of finding a new quarterback. And they have set up visits with Anthony Calandria from UNLV, Ashton Daniels from Auburn, and DJ Lagway from the Florida Gators. This all happened really fast this afternoon, where we got reports that Lagway was in contact with FSU, and then a visit was scheduled. This would be one of the funniest things of all time if DJ Lagway goes from, a struggling Gators team after being one of the highest sought-after recruits in a long time to then going to Mike Norvell coach Florida State. I kind of hope that happens just for the storylines and the jokes, but, of these three guys, there's not, I'm not surprised that FSU is not in the running for one of the elite quarterbacks. I'm not surprised that Sorsby isn't giving him a look. I'm not surprised that Leavitt isn't giving him a look. They were connected with Colton Joseph from Old Dominion, but it seems like now FSU is moving on to one of these three guys in Calandria, Lagway, or Daniels. Lagway is clearly a project. Calandria has experience at Virginia at the power level, had a good year at UNLV. And Ashton Daniels, he did show some signs of life at Auburn at the end of this year when it was his chance. So all these three guys are kind of in the same tier right now. DJ Lagway has by far the highest ceiling. So if you're Norvell, you do kind of have to commit to Lagway. I think he's got to be your guy. And then Daniels and Calandria, I'm not really sure you can go wrong one or the other. I think they both kind of give you very similar, contributions to the team. Right now, breaking news right now, Michael Van Buren, LSU's quarterback, is hitting the portal. Now, I guess what this kind of does justify is that, Lane Kiffin is bringing somebody in. We kind of knew that was going to be the case. He was after Leavitt. I believe they had at least kicked the tires in on Sorsby, but that doesn't seem like that's going to pan out. But Michael Van Buren, LSU's quarterback, who was the backup to Nussmeier, took over at the end of the year. He is entering the transfer portal. He's in the portal. So LSU is definitely looking for a new quarterback. Kiffin's going to have to bring somebody in now, and we'll see how that goes as some stuff progresses. We'll get some details out on that. But speaking of LSU, what a great segue. Caden Durham, their sophomore running back, he is entering the transfer portal, and he will not be in Baton Rouge next year. He had a great freshman year, did Durham. It wasn't so great this season, but really the entire LSU offense was a letdown. Their offensive line wasn't there. There wasn't really a single week where everybody was healthy, especially Garrett Nussmeier. So LSU's running game really struggled as a whole. But Durham's a guy that I'm pretty high on. He showed his capabilities as an athlete in his freshman season. Sophomore slump. I'm not really sure this was like a normal sophomore slump just because of the context of the rest of the team. But Durham, I'm not sure is a guy who is necessarily going to have to move down. Right? Like I think he can pretty much go to another high-profile school, maybe stick in the SEC, maybe Big 10, Big 12, something like that. But Durham, I don't think needs to move down. I think he can pretty much make a lateral move here and be a good contributor next season for somebody in the backfield. Trey Wilson, the Florida receiver who hit the portal, he is visiting Texas A&M this weekend, and then he's going to LSU. My first reaction when I heard that is I kind of want to see this guy in Lane Kiffin's LSU offense. I think his skill set fits that scheme really, really well with Lane and Charlie Wise calling the plays, just as long as Trey can stay healthy. He's been banged up his entire career with the Gators, but when he's healthy, it's very clear how good of a player he is. He can really put a receiver room, a whole offense even, on his back when he's 100%. The question is, can he be 100%? So I think between those two schools, A&M is going to throw a lot of money at him. They're going to cover him in oil, but I do think that Trey at LSU would be a really, really good fit. Kenny Minchey, the quarterback from Notre Dame who is leaving, he is now the favorite to be Nebraska's next quarterback. This, I think, is a really good mix. What am I talking about? A really good solution for both sides. Minchey's a really good player. He just barely got beat out by C.J. Carr, who had an exceptional freshman season. He's a really dynamic runner, but people hear that and think, okay, he's a running quarterback. I want a guy who can throw. He's got a hell of an arm too. You just got to watch some of this tape. Minchey's a really good player. I think he's a very good replacement for Dylan Raiola for the Cornhuskers. So Kenny Minchey likely going to Nebraska. I think that is a great solution for both sides. Trey Wisner, the running back from Texas. He's a really veteran guy. Texas has a lot of turnover in the running back room happening, and he is the most experienced guy leaving. He is visiting both Florida State and Ole Miss. So FSU is going after a lot of SEC talent in the portal at this point. I would, between FSU and Ole Miss, I'd probably think he does go to Florida State. I'd imagine that the Noles will be able to present him with a really good opportunity to be that feature guy, be the leader in that locker room. So I would think he goes to FSU, but he will also be going to Oxford to visit Ole Miss. One of the best receivers in the portal, whose name is not Cam Coleman, Jayce Brown from Kansas State. He has locked in 6 visits to Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU, Auburn, Kentucky, and Louisville. So it's 5 SEC schools, and then Louisville. Jayce Brown being on Kansas State and having Avery Johnson as your quarterback, it is not a very good mix, those two things, to really be able to show what you can do as a receiver. But Jayce Brown still kind of did. He's an incredibly talented guy. He's lethal downfield. So I think at any of those schools, I would imagine he goes to an SEC school, right? Because there's going to be a little more money there, a little more exposure and opportunity there. Jayce Brown moving to the SEC, I think, is a big-time move. I think he's going to open a lot of people's eyes, and he's going to make whichever fan base he goes to incredibly happy with his playmaking ability. A guy who was a bit of a surprise, at least in my opinion, that he went into the portal is Aaron Scott Jr. He's a defensive back at Ohio State. He was likely a starter next year for the Buckeyes. So whether this is just financial or maybe he just wanted to change of scenery, he didn't need to transfer like some of these guys kind of needed to transfer. The situation is good, being a Buckeye. You're probably going to start next year. Good NFL pipeline. So it's a little surprising that he's leaving. But we don't have much intel yet on where he's looking, who's looking at him because of how fresh he is in the portal. But he's going to be a very good get for whoever lands him. Then just 2 more guys here. Isaiah Canyon. Or I'm not sure how I pronounced the last name. But C-A-N-I-O-N, Isaiah Canyon, a receiver from Georgia Tech. He hit the portal. The buzz around him is Florida. We're seeing a lot of Georgia Tech to Florida this cycle with Buster Faulkner, the OC. Aaron Philo is all but a done deal to go be their quarterback. And now Isaiah Canyon at receiver. You kind of have to trust it if you're a Florida fan. Right, you do, because there's a lot of excitement around the hire of Buster Faulkner as your OC. So if you're going to be confident in that, you got to be confident in his evals. And, the idea of just on paper, Georgia Tech's offense coming to Gainesville, that might not sound super appealing. It was a really good offense. And you trust his OC, so you have to trust his players. Isaiah Canyon, I do believe, will be a Florida Gator. And the last guy I'm talking about here is Tefilin Green, defensive lineman from Clemson. He has 4 schools that are standing out: LSU, Texas A&M, USC, and Miami. Now, when those are the 4 schools that are going after you, you know you're a damn good player. And Green is a really, really good presence on that defensive front. Leaving Clemson, hard to blame a guy for leaving Clemson at this point. So he will be at one of those 4 big brand schools and making a lot of noise next year. There we go. There is another batch of transfer portal updates. Once again, if you're looking for a place to follow this, I am doing it 24/7. This is literally all I'm doing right now. College basketball, I love it. Conference play starts today. I don't even know what's going on over there. This transfer portal is going crazy. It is so fun to cover, and it's a lot of, it's hard to keep up with, but it's a lot of fun too. So drop a subscribe. Follow me on Twitter if you want to keep seeing this coverage. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I have been Will Thomas, and I will see you next time.